Welcome to the Sellernomics podcast. In today's special episode, we are going to share some great tools and software available to Amazon sellers. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know you can get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics? Now it is time to show us what you got with your host, Rob Stanley.
Hey everyone, Rob Stanley here. Yeah, another great episode of Show Us What You Got. We're going to talk about this in just a second. We're going to talk about how Amazon sellers can expand globally. Got a great presentation on different facts and different things going on. Of course, everybody knows with everything going on in the world right now, expanding and making more money on Amazon is something you definitely want to be looking into, especially if you're just selling, let's say, in the US. You want to expand globally. Definitely something to take a look at. Daneel Steinmann is going to come in to the room right now. How are you doing, Daneel?
Hey, Rob, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Excellent. We're going to have a great demo here. We're talking about how Amazon sellers can expand globally. Just give us a quick brief of kind of what we're going to be talking about, and let's jump right into showing this presentation you got set for us.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. I think I just want to sort of outline some interesting facts on the different markets that Amazon sellers need to look at, and just what the Amazon, revenue growth has been in these markets. I think sellers love to see show me the money, and that's more what I want to show them. And then I just want to talk through the turnkey solution that Zia has sort of built over the last few years to really assist sellers in sort of taking care of all of your supply chain and compliance headaches for going international. So yeah, really excited.
Absolutely. So Daneel's going to go ahead and share his screen. While he's doing that, so he is with a company called Z.co, Z-E-E.co, while he gets ready to share that screen. And I remember you were mentioning earlier when we were offline here, you were talking about there's some great facts you're going to be sharing with us and some information regarding, I think it was Europe, if not mistaken. And why don't we go ahead and bring that on the screen? So 1 second. All right, go ahead.
Can you guys see?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if everybody could just leave a quick comment that you could see the screen, everything looks okay. And we'll like those likes and those thumbs up if you can, but leave a comment down in the comment section. Go ahead.
Great. Awesome. Rob, just sort of disclaimer, I can't see the comments as my screen shared. So hopefully, if anything, just prompt me. Yep. I have the presentation up in front of me.
Absolutely. We'll handle that for you. Go ahead.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So I think sort of starting off, just sort of in terms of stats that we pulled from Jungle Scout, 96% of sellers want to expand. And we think that a lot of times people look at there's mainly two ways to expand, and that's penetrating a market or expanding. Now, it's actually scary to see the amount of sellers that don't do the latter and been trying to only penetrate the US. Now, sort of what I'm talking about there is 67% of sellers have only looked at launching either new products, expanding their brand line, or actually looking at going into new marketplaces, such as, for instance, Walmart or etc. But I think what I want to talk today about is sort of the second option, which is going into new markets. Now, I think especially it's important for sellers to look at and say, but how, So this is sort of a breakdown of the percentage of world sellers and just where they're based. And I think it's so important to remember that when it comes to the US, that 51% is great, but people don't always understand how much more competition you're facing to get your buy box. And going into Europe, the UK, and Europe, Asian markets is such a great way to diversify, take risk off the table by having your eggs in one basket, but at the same time, you have way less competition. I think. Hey,
Daneel, let's have you hide the share screen, and I think we might be missing a little bit of info at the bottom there. So maybe we might need to zoom out a little bit.
Okay, sorry, that's perfect. Thanks for.
Yeah, there you go. Hit that StreamYard hide right there. Go down right there. There you go. Now we can see it. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. No, that's perfect. Thanks, guys. Sorry about. Now it's zoomed out a bit. Just give me a second.
No, it's all good. Yeah. So we're. Go ahead.
That's cool.
You can jump
right
right
in. So I think we touch on this, and then in terms of sort of where we were looking at was this sort of stats. So I think it's very interesting to see how much the pandemic has actually increased US sellers. But if you look at it nearly tripled. But if you look at Europe, Germany, Japan, especially Germany and UK, it's not nearly the growth we've seen. But yet, if we go look at the stats in terms of the revenue sellers are getting, it's actually really interesting to compare with the little amount of people that entered those markets. So this is sort of just a percentage share of e-commerce. I'm happy to always afterwards give the slides away. And then looking at this, I think it's so interesting to see the size of international markets and just the growth over the last few years. Especially if you look from 2019 pre-pandemic and just sort of the nearly doubled in global sales, like nearly 100 billion sales on Amazon is no joke. And I think what I always want to say is it's important to look at this is sort of excluding the US market, but just sort of if you look at the size of, if you actually combine Europe, the UK, and some of the other markets, just to what extent you can possibly double your sales. So this is sort of looking at the US, obviously the world's largest, and then just sort of, I'm just skipping through these slides for transparency and showing around just sort of the different markets and growth. Germany nearly at 40 bill. I think it just passed 50 bill now in 2022. The UK sort of, in third place after the UK. And then interestingly, I think
wow,
this is also good to see for sellers just how small Australia is compared to those. It's funny for me how much clients want to go there. And if you haven't conquered Europe and the UK, I really do think that that's sort of your next move. And then also the Japanese market. And I think this is a very underrated market for a lot of sellers. Also, I've seen a few aggregators move over now with us into these markets as great opportunity with way less competition. I think it's just because of the barriers of entry and the language barrier that makes it difficult for sellers to go in here. So yeah, these are
every one of those was going up, huh? Every single
Yes.
chart you had is increasing on all those different marketplaces. So
Yes.
I mean, obviously the trend is it everywhere's, all the marketplaces are going up.
Yes, I think what makes it even more interesting, Rob, is that that first slide I showed, the amount of new sellers in the market has tripled in the US. And in the UK and Germany, it nearly only went up with like 20-30%. So all of these additional revenue is actually coming for the current sellers in the markets. And that's because of the barriers of entry and people actually, not utilizing this opportunity to enter these new markets. So that is a good comment you made there. Just sort of, I think this is just an interesting fact that I think people have a lot of times used the argument that Amazon is stealing a lot of sales from these new markets where people see success. But if you look at over the last 3 years, the share of revenue that comes from private label sellers and third-party sellers are still increasing. It's still around about 60%. And it's not as if Amazon is competing on every listing. So just sort of something that I hear a lot and just wanted to debunk that myth. And then I think it's also interesting just to see how consumerism have changed with Prime members and how they are increasing globally in these new markets. So that's something maybe just to look at. And I think this slides were more just to really show people that the opportunity is there. It's not still there. It's people haven't taken it yet, and it's really up there for the grabs if you can figure out how to get your goods there. So that's more some interesting stats that I wanted to share. And I think I want to start off now by just sort of using a idea of how a client at Z has benefited from using us. I think we've seen within the first few months, one of our clients increased 35% of their revenue just by entering these new markets. And I think we'll get after this, just go through everything we do, because as you said, the podcast is Show Us What You Got. And I really want to sort of touch on what we do. But I thought I'd maybe just share some interesting insights beforehand, before going into sort of the details of what we do. So, I think if you know what we do, at least by now, you've learned some new interesting stats, hopefully. And now I really do want to talk about how we help brands going international. I think, as I've mentioned,
so Daneel, this company right here that you're showing a quick example of, they were actually selling in Japan and not selling in the UK, right?
Yes.
What about the US? Were they also still in the US?
Yeah, so they have been selling in the US. I think they were based in Japan, so they sold in Japan and the US. But the UK, they just haven't entered. And I think this was just a sort of testimonial from their side when we opened the UK for them. Within the first few months, we saw a 35% increase in their revenue just because they opened this new market. So I think just on that, the problem sellers face, is that, I just wanted to touch further on this, but here's something that he said. And using us for the import and the freight, we actually by us handling his entire process. He had a 25% reduction in his freight rates, and he had a 40% increase in the EU sales within the year. So they were sort of just touching on one of the sellers that are like the previous example. And then over this, I wanted to just touch on what we do at Z. So just a bit of background on us for the people on here that's saying, you know, why haven't they heard about Z? We actually form part of the world's largest regulation tech company. We've got about 1,500 employees worldwide, and in the import and compliance space, we've been operating for 10 years. So we actually assist the likes of Amazon themselves, Microsoft, Google, Apple with their import and compliance. And because of that, we had 100 of Amazon sellers ask on our website, can you help us with Amazon to expand globally? Now, over the last 2 years, when I helped start Z, we were 4 people, and we've grown to over 120 employees in the last 18 months. Really looking at how can we get obsessed with our customers and give them the same client experience as we've been giving all of these S&P companies. But we realized that in the Amazon space, we need to look at alternative ways to service our clients, because there were certain things needed that we didn't offer in the tech and medical business. So starting off, like for sellers that's listening to this and saying, okay, Daneel, I like what you're saying, and we have seen some of these stats, but we don't have the time, and we actually have no idea how to get our goods into Europe. So I just want to go through the A to Z process and sort of skipping to the conclusion. We do help with everything, but I want to take you through the different components you need to look at. So even if you do not end up using us, that you at least have what it needs to look at going global. So I think starting off, I call it global trade compliance. It's so important to make sure that when you are moving into a new market, there's a lot of different regulations involved with certain products. I think anyone that sells cosmetics, supplements, food products, electronics, they'll know that even in the US, there were so many hoops they had to jump through before they could actually start selling the products. Now, you can take that and multiply it by 5 when you go into Europe and the UK. Terminology like EPR requirements, getting registered for a responsible person, getting your waste output calculated, your labels with the right translations and the way it needs to be formatted for Amazon, the pallet restrictions in different countries. There are so many different things that you need to consider in terms of your products when you go into new markets. I see a lot of sellers, send their goods with a freight forwarder and it gets stuck at customs because it wasn't actually legal for import in that country. So sort of the first step is to make sure your goods are legal for import and legal for sale. Now at Z, we've built a team of over 50 lawyers that built massive databases and focuses, instead of handling court cases, at handling all of the product compliance for your specific ASINs. So people that want to move international, especially now with all of the recession glooming in the US and they want to move fast, we can help you with all of your product compliance in 1 or 2 weeks. And we literally onboard you onto our platform and show you exactly what the different things are you need for your specific products, what licenses you require, the way you need to label it, and we give you access to an account manager that is trained in that specific region you're going into and assist you. So that's sort of step 1, and we can help you with it, but something that sellers need to consider when going global. I think step 2 is when you're going into a new country, and this is what our entire core offering is built on, you need an importer of record. Now, for people that's selling in the US, it's easy because you as a US business is importing these goods into the country. When you're going into new markets like Asia, Europe, the UK, you actually need someone that will be your importer in that country. Now, Amazon specifically states on their financial statements they'll never act as your importer. And if you think about it, here's where the complexity comes in. You want to stay the owner of your goods moving into that new country, but you don't have anyone that can do the import for you on your behalf. Now, that's where we as Z specialize in doing all of the import on your behalf. We actually handle all of the paperwork involved with the custom clearance process. We assign the broker. We give the custom pack into authorities, and we do it in a way that we can guarantee you that you can get your import VAT back. Now, sometimes sellers try and work with a freight forwarder that just tries and get your goods through country, and they end up never getting the import VAT back. Now, in Europe and the UK, that is 19 or 20%. So by you trying to have the quick and easy way, you can end up losing a 20% of your margin, which I think most sellers would agree is not sort of feasible. So that is the second step. You need to either go and create a legal entity in that country, maintain a physical presence, and have all of the needed paperwork in place for the importation, which is a very costly and long process, or you can use someone like us that can do it on your behalf. Thirdly, while you're busy with this, you need to make sure that you get the right freight provider. Now, we aren't a freight forwarder, but because of the thousands of shipments we send on a monthly basis throughout the different business units, we have unbelievable freight rates. Now, that ensures that our clients actually benefit from using our freight. I always like to say, we're not a freight forwarder, and we want to make sure we can either beat or match the current freight you are receiving. So we put your freight to market, and we'll actually handle the entire process to make your shipment feel like a DDP shipment. We'll do the whole sort of pickup from country. We'll liaise with the freight. We'll actually do the final mile delivery to the Amazon warehouse. I think step 4 is you need to get your import VAT reclaim. Now, I recently posted on LinkedIn that got a lot of traction, but we recently acquired, and we can publicly say it now, a VAT registration and VAT compliance business. And we bought them in-house to actually, the step 4 can almost form part of step 1, is to get your VAT registered into all of the countries you want to sell in. Above that, we'll make sure to do all of your filings, handle any audit inquiries, and make sure that any transaction that's not in routine, gets properly allocated in the monthly filings to make sure everything is correct. Now, the reason we acquired the company was we realized that the step 4, we were actually outsourcing to someone, and the people that wanted to work with Z were working with us because they really wanted to work fast and have someone that they can outsource to for everything regarding their supply chain and compliance. So I think this is sort of broken down into the different things you need to consider when going global. For your VAT registration, you need to have realistically a time frame of about a month to a month and a half to make sure all of the compliance is done. But ideally, for any seller that's sitting in the US and frightened by the fact that they are dependent on this market, or they've been selling in Europe and the UK, go into the East, go into Australia, go into Canada, especially with the current times that sellers are facing. You can either flight or fight. And I think by fighting and getting your goods in different markets, you open up the opportunity to double your revenue. I think the big problem was sellers didn't have the time to do this. And Z is going to value your time more than ever to make sure we can take care of the entire process. So I think that is sort of our entire holistic solution. And I think lastly, very happy to run someone through our onboarding, show them how we can pull them quotes, pull them gap analysis for their products, give them a glimpse of what the type of customer service they are expecting from us. And that is truly what I believe sets us apart from anything in the market. Rob, I don't know if you have any questions you want to address.
Yeah, let me, we could probably remove the screen. We'll go back to the standard screen. Yeah, no, Perfect. That's great information. We really appreciate that. Yeah, I have to say I don't have a very technical field in the logistics and area you're in, because I would just usually hire somebody like you guys to handle that for me. But where do you find, actually I do have a question though. So a lot of US sellers are expanding. We assume that a lot of them are going to Europe. Where do you kind of see, besides US and Canada, they tend to be going to Europe kind of as a next move. What are you kind of seeing as a trend after that? Are they looking at like Japan, or what other areas in the globe are they kind of looking at expanding to?
Yeah. So I literally had a call with one big one. He asked me that question. I said to him, I think it's very product dependent. I think if you're looking at Japan, supplements are doing unbelievably. If you're looking at baby products, you might look at a completely different market. So I think you need to, we're not a marketing expert. We are the supply chain expert, and we can help you. Your dream of being this global seller, we can make that a reality. But that, for me, I think the trend is very based on product specific categories. Although I agree that I think Japan is a great place to expand. And I don't think that really knows the word recession as we've been hearing it as much in the US and Europe. I think UAE, Dubai is also a great market to look at, as people there start consuming, high margin products, they do quite well again. So if you've got a more luxury product, Dubai is a good place. And then I think it's very much direct to consumer brands off Amazon do quite well in Australia. So it's very much looking at what your product is, what way do you want to go? Are you only going via Amazon, or do you want to also fulfill locally from a 3PL on your own website? Because we have a lot of big Shopify clients that want to do that. And, then the recommendation changes. So I think I've answered your question with just making it more wider, which I usually hate as a response, but now I'm giving you that. But I hope that sort of gives clarity on my opinion.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Definitely.
It sure does. Yeah.
And going back. Oh,
sorry, I think.
There we go.
Light went out. There you go.
And going back to kind of the A to Z that you walked us through, you had mentioned before that Z is not a freight forwarder, but you guys do help with the logistics. Can you give a clear definition of what the difference is between a freight forwarder and Z?
Yeah. So we are an import and a compliance specialist. So our job is really working with customs, doing all of the paperwork, taking all of the risk, and ensuring that the whole import process runs smoothly. A freight forwarder is someone that only does the logistics side. The problem with freight forwarders are they are built for bulk and for freight shipment. Now, when you are importing into a country where you have a physical presence, you don't need us because you can act. And although there is some people that prefer that just because of the ease of working with us, but you technically don't need us because you can act as your own importer, and you can pretty much, make sure that all of the importation goes smoothly. We're a specialist on the global scene. So when it comes to different countries like Germany and France, there's so much different regulations involved. And where you don't have a physical presence, A, you actually need us to do your import. And then B, where freight forwarders links with us is we actually work with them. So when we quote a client on a 40-foot container, we put his freight to market, and we ensure that whoever his previous freight provider is, that we could either match beat the current price we're getting from them, but we handle the whole process on your behalf, so that even when it comes to with the freight forwarder to do your entire shipment, and then that's for when it comes to any. We have unbelievable courier rates, and then we handle the process through our portal. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, Lisa.
Oh, it definitely does. And then one other question that I had was, you mentioned that Z helps with the VAT registration. What about EORI registration?
So in our global line, it's a monthly, so where we do all of your product compliance, all of your taxes. We have no upfront cost because we believe our goal is actually to get you shipping. We're an import specialist. So all of the dirty work we do of getting your EORI number, your VAT registrations, all of that is actually on the house for us, because we want to work that into the costing of knowing that we actually want to get you importing across the world. That enables us to do it on your behalf. But yes, we can help with your EORI, we can help you with registration, with anything regarding compliance or taxes. It's very up our alley.
Okay,
nice.
Awesome. EORI, not EORI. That's so much faster. Okay.
Nice. Daniel, why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you? I know you had that screen up real quick, and I'll put some up on the screen. But how do they get a hold of you, or how do they learn more about Z.co? And tell us a little more.
Great. I think there will be a link in the show notes, but I think if anyone has a direct question, I've never been scared to jump on a call and really just sort of ask, add value. I don't believe that in the Amazon space we can charge for consulting fees. Rob would know the space is so small and everyone's so connected. So I'm always happy to jump on a call with anyone that have any questions and add value, because that's what we want to do. Is we want to simplify a solution for you. And so they can contact me on daneelste@z.co. I think you'll add it in the show notes, or go to our website, book a call with us there. But yeah, happy to jump on a call with anyone that has any questions.
Yeah. So, and again, if you're watching this after the show's already ended live, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. I'll get a hold of Danielle and we'll get that answer. Or you can email Daniel It's DANEELSTE at z.co, zee.co, or just head over to zee.co. I'm sure there's a connection button there, or ask a question type button. I'm sure you can get a hold of him that way. Daniel, it was great having you on the show, and thanks for showing us what you got. I definitely learned a lot more than I knew about logistics, and thanks for coming on. I know it took us a little while to get you on here, but really appreciate you coming on, sharing this great information with everybody, and giving them a chance to, expand globally. Amazon sellers are always looking for ways to make more money, and I think obviously expanding is one of the quicker ways to do it, and you guys can accelerate that process. So thanks again for coming on, and thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Sellernomics podcast. Show us what you got. I'll talk to you later, Danielle.
Thanks so much.
Goodbye, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.